I could imagine myself seeing him. I often got the feeling that he was right behind me. If I just turned around quick enough, I'd enter a dark room, knowing he was there, making me afraid to turn on the lights. I would stare at an empty space, knowing that he would appear if I wasn't vigilant enough. I expected him at every turn, at every corner. He was real, but I also knew that there was no way he could be. Then there was an incident. It wasn't bad, but it looked bad. I was at a coffee shop ordering a latte and a bun when I suddenly fainted. Bang, lights out. I don't have any memory of what happened, but people in the coffee shop had freaked out. The ambulance came. 2 people were propping my head up with their jackets. They checked my pulse and breathing, and I was fine. The tests were inconclusive. Sure, there were some inconsistencies, but none of them were out of the ordinary. I'd been in a coma for weeks and only just recently started my physical therapy. There were sure to be readings that were out of the ordinary. So I got back home with a decent bill of health. There was only one thing that bothered me. They'd gotten my height wrong. I'm a solid 5'9", but according to the tests, I was at least 6'1". I'd also lost no less than 12 pounds since my last checkup. At first, I thought it was in my head. My fingers were starting to look longer. I was losing a bit of my complexion. I made excuses for all of it, but it wasn't that simple. The next few nights proved that. The sleepwalking got worse. The final straw was waking up in front of the bathroom mirror with the words, "Nobody loves you," written in blood. I'd shaved my head and brushed my teeth so violently my mouth tasted raw flesh. I wasn't even pale anymore. I was pallid. Of course the nobody loves me. I was his only friend in that place between worlds, that hollow, dark place. Over the upcoming weeks, the changes would become more obvious. I'd grow another 2 inches and lose another 20 pounds. My hair didn't grow back, and I lost hair in other places as well. I was having trouble with my teeth, and I was getting these violent coughs. My ribcage was aching from the coughing, and I got a prescription for asthma medication. It didn't help. I barely recognized myself in the mirror anymore. I started to look like him. Sometimes I'd hear him, just as I fell asleep. That bump in the night had a voice, thanking me for bringing him along. In the next breath, he'd praise himself for saving me. 6 months into my physical therapy, I was barely recognizable. A thin membrane had grown in my throat, effectively separating my voice into 2 pipes, one light, one dark, which spoke simultaneously. The doctor had a fancy word for it, and we tried to schedule surgery for it, but my insurance wouldn't cover it. It was the kind of condition one does not simply get, but something you just have. Hence, I couldn't have gotten it as a result of the accident. It had to be pre-existing, even though it wasn't. They said the same about my fingers. Fingers don't just grow. I could literally show the growth measure from day to day, but it didn't matter. My canines also grew longer. They'd poke a hole in my bottom lip at night. Not that I'd sleep much anyway. I was always tired. I dread going to sleep, so I started relying on sleeping pills. At best, I'd have a dreamless night that lasted 4 hours or less. At worst, I'd be twisting and turning in a cold sweat for 14 hours straight. Night and day float together when you live that kind of life. And sometimes he'd come visit me, the nobody. I'd feel his presence lying there next to me, sometimes thanking me, sometimes praising himself. Except now, we had the same voice, the same double-piped voice making us sound like 2 people speaking at once in a gruesome vibrato. One night as I brushed my teeth, I saw him in the mirror. I could feel my face twisting and turning at his whim. We were having a conversation, wide awake, through my body. He smiling at me through a face I barely recognized as my own. "I'll stop," he made me say.